Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So welcome back to the Bhakti-vaibhava Course. So we are on the second Canto, 9th chapter. So we are on the verses 25 to 30. So this is the gist of the happenings on these 5 verses. Brahma acknowledged that the Lord knows the desires for everyone. Nevertheless, Brahma requested him to explain how he interacts with the material universes and how he is their source and resting place. While always remaining transcendental to matter, Brahma also desired to learn how he himself could be instrumental in creation without becoming either conditioned or proud. Brahma asks further questions and prays not to be proud and perturbed due to his act of creation. Brahma vacha Bhagavan sarvabhutanam adyaksho vastito guham vedaya pratiruddena prajnanena chikirshitam. Lord Brahma said, O personality of Godhead, you are situated in every living entity's heart as a supreme director, and therefore you are aware of all endeavors by your superior intelligence without any hindrance whatsoever. Now, after the Lord spoke to Brahma was really completely stunned by the advice that Lord Krishna spoke to him regarding the performance of austerities and how austerities or the penance is not different from him. So now Brahma, to ask further questions and also to clarify some of his understandings about the difference between the Lord's spiritual form and the material form, and then the influence of Maya, and then how he should actually get into the act of creation, what he should do, how he should take care of himself. And before even asking those questions, he first of all acknowledged the Lord. He first of all glorified the Lord by explaining him to be the supreme director. And also how the Lord is completely aware of everyone's desire and their endeavor, because the Lord has got superior intelligence. That's the point. Now Srila Prabhupada, in the purport, he puts an amazing statement. We will go through that. The Bhagavad Gita confirms that the Lord is situated in everyone's heart as the witness, and that is He, thus the supreme director of sanction. The director is not the enjoyer of the fruits of action, but without the Lord's sanction, no one can enjoy. For example, in a prohibited area of drinking, and the director, considering his case, sanctions only a certain amount of liquor for drinking. Similarly, the whole material world is full of many drunkards, in the sense that each and every one of the living entities has something in his mind to enjoy, and everyone desires the fulfillment of the desires very strongly. Nice analogy Prabhupada has given here. The Almighty Lord, being very kind to the living entity as the Father is kind to the Son, fulfills the living entity's desire for childish satisfaction. So we know the background. The Jiva has independence, and to satisfy the independence, the Lord is cooperating with that desire. With such desires in mind, the living entity does not actually enjoy, but he serves the bodily whims unnecessarily without profit. The drunkard does not derive any profit out of drinking, but because he has become a servant of the drinking habit and does not wish to get out of it, the merciful Lord gives him all facilities to fulfill such desires. So this is the background of our philosophy also. The Jiva has got the minute independence, and the minute independence, the Lord does not interfere with that minute independence. He gives the Jiva the chance to think about what is really beneficial for him. Yet that which is not beneficial for him, the Jiva takes that to be his goal, and he tries to satisfy it, but at the end you can see only frustration remains. So Prabhupada points out here that the Jiva should submit to the desire of the Lord. Rather, the Lord is giving permission to the Jiva to go ahead with his foolish desire, which is not going to fulfill the Jiva. The Lord is allowing it because He knows that only by experience the Jiva will learn. So that's what. So Brahma is very humbly putting forth the glory of the Lord. Now, from verses 26, you can see one after another there are questions being asked by Brahma. Tatapi nata manasya nata nataya natitam paravare yata rupe janiyang te tvarupinah. In spite of that, my Lord, I am praying to you to kindly fulfill my desire. So before he says, you know the endeavor of everyone, you know you have superior intelligence, you know what is going on in the mind of everyone. Still, in spite of that, I am asking some questions to you. Please fulfill those desires. May I please be informed how, in spite of your transcendental form, you assume the mundane form, although you have no such form at all. So this is the first question, which acts as the the answers form the basis of the Chatushloki. Okay, this is the first question he's asking. So, you are having transcendental form, there is also some mundane form. How to understand what are these forms? So, he wants to know about it. Yatatmamaya yogena nana shakt upabhrumhitam vilumpan visrujan grihnan bibrad atmanamatmana. And please inform me how your own self manifests different energies for annihilation, generation, acceptance and maintenance by combination and permutation. So how the Lord is acting through all the various activities that is happening. What are the different? How does it happen through the diffusion of his energies? How does it happen? Brahma is curious to know about it. We will discuss in detail when we are going to answer these questions. But nevertheless, I'm just pointing out here that Prabhupada is almost hinting at the Shakti Parinamavada here. He's speaking about that. I'll just go through this part. But the whole manifestation is the Lord himself by diffusion of his different energies only, namely the internal, external and marginal. Just as the sunlight is a manifestation of the energy of the sunlight. We know about it. So this is the Shakti Parinamavada. The Lord, let us speak about it now. The basis of the impersonalists is that they have no idea that the Lord has got energies. The Lord acts through the energies. They have no conception of it. For them, the God is transformed into everything. But here in the purport very clearly it is explained that the energies are acting by the combination and permutation by the indication of the Lord, and the acting agents like Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva are also different incarnations of the Lord. In other words, there is nothing but the Lord, and still the Lord is different from all such manifestive activities. How it is so will be explained later on. Any verse from the Bhagavad Gita we can relate to? You should be able to tell it like this immediately. Having discussed about this for several times, you should be able to immediately relate to this. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9. I can give you a hint also. What? Yeah. Nachamatstani bhutani paschime yogam aishwaram. What it has got to do with this? Maya tatam idam sarvam jagat avyakta murtina matstani sarva bhutani nachaham tesha avastita. When we were doing the Bhakti Shastra, when we had the Bhagavad Gita session, we very much discussed about the Shakti Parinamavada when we discussed about this verse. So you should always remember this. This verse, aham evasam evagre, these are something similar. We can see that there is a link of Shakti Parinamavada. Thus, in fact, our Achintya Beda Abeda Tattva philosophy is very much in, we can give this verse as an immediate example. The Lord is simultaneously present and not present. So how we understand it, that's what very in a simple way Prabhupada is putting here. In other words, there is nothing but the Lord, and still the Lord is different from all such manifestive activities. How do we understand? We understand that the Lord is manifesting himself everywhere into everything through his energies. That's the point. Okay. We will discuss more about this when we speak about the Chatushloki Bhagavatam. Text 28. Kridasya moga sankalpa urnanabhir yatornute tata tad vishayang dehi manisham mayimadhava. O Master of all energies, please tell me philosophically all about them. You play like a spider that covers itself with its own energy, and your determination is infallible. This is an interesting point here made by Brahma. So he wants to know how the Lord is not covered by these energies, how the Lord is not pulled by these energies, how the Lord is able to engage in creation, maintenance and destruction, how the Lord is still away from the reactions of these energies. How is it that? So he gives an example here, very nicely he's putting it, Brahma is putting it that you are acting like a spider, how the spider is able to, urnananibihi, he says, urnananibhir yatornute, as good as the spider, you are able to handle the situation. So I would like to know that. Why Brahma was so eager to know about that? Because Brahma is going to be engaged in creation. Creation means there is going to be a lot of passionate activities. So how am I not going to be devoured by that passion? My dear Lord, you are so expert. You are so expert. You come to this world. Your interaction is there with all the jivas, with everyone, but still you are untouched by it. What is the science behind it? Now, I was little curious to know about why this example, specifically the spider example is given. Why Brahma is pointing to spider. Okay, let's speak about that. Prabhupada says, the exact example is the spider and spider's web. The web is created by the spider and it is maintained by the spider. And as soon as the spider likes, the whole thing is wound up within the spider. I'm not sure if you have observed this. This is an amazing potency, the spider. The spider is a very humble being, very small being. Some 10 days back, I was in the ashram. We have kind of a small garden we are having. We are cultivating some vegetables and like that. Just above, in the middle, there's one amazing spider web was created. And it is just coming out of its saliva. It's creating, and then it is, the amazing thing is the spider could move within that spider web. It is not possible actually for any insect or any other body to go into the web and come out of it. Not possible. You get trapped because it has designed, the spider web is designed in such a way that once you get into it, you are trapped. That's why this, and there is also recently, science comes up with something, but science recently, not recently, maybe some years back, or they very well know that the web, the material that the spider is using, if you collect all those materials, it is very strong. In fact, they say that it is 5 times or 7 times stronger than the steel girder. Steel girder, girder is like you do some construction with steel, you need for the basement support, they have this, like sometimes you have seen the iron one, but there is also with the steel they make, but the web is so strong, they say. The material that it is using, it's so powerful and strong. And that's one thing. And another thing is also the design that the spider is using. There are many, scientists are completely stunned by its creative potency and the structural design it does for the web. There are some designs which in some construction places, they use the web structural design. Okay, so that's another additional information. Then another important thing is that the spider on its own, what it does, it could walk in such a way it doesn't get trapped. It knows the technique, how to place the feet. Sometimes there are some minute hairs on the spider. It uses those kind of ability, and it knows where to keep the leg, and then it can traverse. It can just go through anywhere. It will never get trapped. But anyone else, they get trapped. So that's why it's very interesting. This spider, particularly again and again, we can see many places in the Bhagavatam. The example of spider is given. If you have observed it, in many shlokas this comes up. So today morning I was doing a little research to find out what is this, such a peculiar thing about spider. So that was interesting. And another thing also we can see, the same with Achintya Bheda Abheda Tattva also we can understand through this spider example. Another verse also this is going to come up, but I will just give a briefing here. That what happens, what is this web? Web is also, we could say, spider in one sense, because it is its extension. This web is the extension of the spider. It is aware. It is very clearly aware. Throughout the web, it is fully aware of what is happening there. And at the same time, you cannot say the web is the spider. So, with this analogy, we can understand the Achintya Bheda Abheda Tattva. Simultaneously, one and different. And anytime it wants, it can withdraw it. It can withdraw the web. It can create, it can withdraw. It has the potential. It knows how to not to get trapped by that. So, I mean, Bhagavatam is such an amazing thing. You cannot find a better example. Well, example is required for conditioned souls like us to perceive the supreme reality. So now that's why Prabhupada is pointing out the spider is covered within the web. If an insignificant spider is so powerful as to act according to its will, why can't the Supreme Being act by His supreme will in the creation, maintenance and destruction of the cosmic manifestations? By the grace of the Lord, a devotee like Brahma or one in his chain of disciplic succession can understand how the Almighty Personality of Godhead eternally engages in His transcendental pastimes in the regions of different energy. So this is the point. When a simple spider could do it, why not the Lord cannot do it? Who gave the intelligence to the spider? Who gave the strength to the spider? Who is actually pushing the spider to perform all the activities? So that's the point. So Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, he gives some more details on this chapter, on this particular verse. He says, O Lord, whose desire is never obstructed, O Madhava, destroying, creating and maintaining the material world composed of various energies by your material energy and manifesting your spiritual form by your own power, you perform pastimes just as a spider creates a web. And by your spiritual energy, by hiding or manifesting various forms and maintaining these forms for your devotees, you perform pastimes like a spider making a web. Give me the intelligence to understand how you do this. So he was very much interested. So two things. One, to understand about how the Lord's interaction happens, so that by looking at it and seeing it, he will also be careful enough to deal with the creation. Okay, text 29. Bhagavad Chikshitam aham karavani yatindritah nehamana praja sargam bhagyeyam yadanugrahat. Now, Brahma very humbly, he is requesting the Lord, please tell me so that I may be taught in the matter by the instruction of the personality of Godhead and may thus act karavani, act instrumentally to generate living entities. Yeah, atindrita, karavani atindrita. My actions, let me be like an instrument. You are the actual person who is doing everything, but I am just an instrument in your service. That's all. This is what we can see very humbly also when Narada Muni posed him in the 5th chapter of the second canto. We can see when Narada Muni is pushing Brahmadev that you are the creator. He says, I am not the creator. I am sub-creator. Everything is actually done by the Lord. I am just an instrument. Very humbly he says. So he says, again he is requesting that please tell me so that I would like to know your way of handling things so that I will just not be conditioned by these activities. Okay, nice point Prabhupada is making the purport. Everyone should know in clear consciousness that one is in the execution of all activities an instrument. A conditioned soul is instrumental in the hands of the external energy, Gunamayi, Maya, or the illusory energy of the Lord. And in the liberated stage, the living entity is instrumental to the will of the personality of Godhead directly. To be instrumental to the direct will of the Lord is the natural constitutional position of the living entity, whereas to be an instrument in the hands of the illusory energy of the Lord is material bondage for the living entity. So nice. So either you be an instrument in the service of the Lord or you be an instrument in the service of Maya. That's all. So choice is ours. We have to decide. Okay. Text 30. Now this is an interesting verse. In this verse we can see the reciprocation of the Lord again. Yavat saka sakyurivesha kite krita praja visarge vibhajami bhojanam aviklavaste parikarmani stito mame samunnadda madhojamaninaha. O my Lord, the unborn, you have shaken hands with me just as a friend does with a friend, as if equal in position. I shall be engaged in the creation of different types of living entities, and I shall be occupied in your service. I shall have no perturbation, but I pray that all these may not give rise to pride, as if I were the supreme. Brahma is praying like this. What is our situation? Brahma is trying to be so careful. He knows if you are a little careless, even a small deviation can create big havoc, right? So here we see that, oh my Lord, the unborn. So he says that You have before shaken hands with me. Okay, you are so merciful. Who am I? I am so insignificant. But you very mercifully accepted my small service, whatever that I did, my austerities I performed. You accepted it and you shook hands with me and you are given me your mercy. Please, my dear Lord, help me so that I don't get carried away during my acts of creation. Let me not become puffed up. Let me not become proud. Pride is just one step before fall, right? So let me be careful. So this is very good that we learn from this verse that we should always be in a prayerful mood. So that's why whatever activities we do, before we start that activity, we offer our prayers to our spiritual master. Let my body, mind and words, let it be engaged only for the pleasure of Hari, Guru, Vaishnavas, not for anything else. And with full concentration, whatever that we need to do, we should put our energy and depend on the Lord. That should be. Not that the Lord will come and do everything for us. I'll sit in one corner, the Lord will come and do. Not like that. Fully taking responsibility and doing it, but depending on the Lord. This is what Krishna advised Arjuna to do. What Krishna says in the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. He says, Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmara yudhyacha mayarpita manobuddhir mame vaisyas asamshayah. He says, there's no doubt. You just with your body, with your mind and intelligence absorbed in me, you engage in this fighting. And then without any doubt, you will come back to me, the Lord says. Okay. Now, so Brahma is showing that dependency. Now, Prabhupada is pointing out in this purport, he says that it is possible that some extremely powerful personality within or without the universe may sometimes show more power than the Lord himself. Still, the pure devotee knows that this power is a vibhuti delegated by the Lord, and such a delegated powerful living entity is never independent. Sri Hanumanji crossed the Indian Ocean by jumping over the sea, and Lord Sri Ramachandra engaged himself in marching over the bridge. But this does not mean that Hanumanji was more powerful than the Lord. Sometimes the Lord gives extraordinary powers to his devotee, but the devotee knows always that the power belongs to the personality of Godhead, and that the devotee is only an instrument. So this is again a very good instruction given here by Srila Prabhupada, showing great devotees, Arjuna, Hanuman, how they performed great tasks, but always they were so submissive. They always gave the credit to the Lord, right? Devotees of the Lord are engaged in the specific duty offered by the Lord, and such duties are successfully carried out without hindrance because they are ordained by the Lord. The credit for success goes not to the doer but to the Lord. So this is how the devotee looks at the whole situation. He says that the Lord, when he gives an instruction, when he gives an order, along with the Lord, along with the instruction, what is coming along with that? Empowerment. The Lord empowers the jiva also. So that's, and he says, so ultimately Lord has empowered me. I am just an instrument. I just like a postman. I am just delivered things. So what is it that I should be proud of? So all glories to my Supreme Lord. This is all. And the difference is the pure devotee acknowledges that, and others we don't acknowledge. They just take the credit for themselves. The credit for success goes not to the doer but to the Lord. But persons with a poor fund of knowledge take the credit for success into their own accounts and give nothing to the account of the Lord. That is a symptom of the non-devotee class of men. Okay, now the cream of verses begin in this chapter. Cream of the verses means all the verses are really very nectarian. Now the Lord is going to speak. He's going to give very important instructions to Brahma for the questions that he has posed. And specifically this verse 31, it forms as the prelude to the Chatushloki. Prelude, you mean it's kind of an introduction, or it gives a fundamental basis of what is going to be discussed in this Chatushloki. Okay. So now let's, so these verses from 31 to 37, or those, actually Chatushloki, when we say Chatushloki, we speak of 4 verses. But actually all these 6 verses are important verses, what the Lord spoke now. And of that main four verses are is being expanded later. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Jnanam Paramaguhyam Me Yad Vijnana Samanvitam Rahasyam Tadangam Cha Grihana Gatitam Maya. The personality of God had said, knowledge about me as described in the scriptures is very confidential, and it has to be realized in conjunction with devotional service. The necessary paraphernalia for that process is being explained by me. you may take it up carefully. So here the Lord is in a gist, he's saying, I'm going to give you a very confidential knowledge, and by that knowledge you will be able to know about me and about my devotional service, and also whatever that is required for you to take up the devotional service, take up the pure devotional service. All those things we will discuss about that more in detail, but please take up this very carefully. Now in this particular shloka there are 4 words which are very important: Jnanam, then Vijnana, then Rahasyam, then Tadangam. These 4 will be elaborated later. In the purport we will discuss about this. Okay. These 4 questions, what we saw now, Prabhupada summarizes these 4 questions. What are the forms of the Lord both in the matter and in transcendence? How are the different energies of the Lord working? How does the Lord play with his different energies? How may Brahma be instructed to discharge a duty entrusted to him? Now here, the Lord informs Brahma that knowledge of him, the supreme absolute truth, as it is stated in the revealed scriptures, is very subtle and cannot be understood unless one is self-realized by the grace of the Lord. So one needs the mercy of the Lord to understand the Lord and his energies. So this is the Vijnana which he is speaking about. Transcendental knowledge of the absolute supreme being can be known if it is made known by the Lord himself. So we have to hear from the Lord to know about his instructions. The mental speculators can reach up to the standard of impersonal Brahman realization, but factually complete knowledge of transcendence is beyond the knowledge of impersonal Brahman. Thus it is called the supreme confidential wisdom. What is the supreme confidential wisdom? That the Lord is a person and we can relate with the Lord, and he is the supreme absolute truth. That knowledge is also revealed. Okay, next Prabhupada further he says, therefore the knowledge of the personality of Godhead may be attained by devotional service only. Rahasyam means devotional service. Lord Krishna instructed Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita because he found Arjuna to be a devotee and friend. So without such qualifications, one cannot enter into the mystery of the Bhagavad Gita. Therefore, one cannot understand the personality of Godhead unless one becomes a devotee and discharges devotional service. This mystery is love of Godhead. The main qualification for knowing the mystery of the personality of Godhead and to attain the stage of transcendental love of Godhead, one must practice the regulative principles of devotional service. Practicing these regulative principles is called Vidhi Bhakti or regulative devotional service of the Lord, and they can be practiced by a neophyte with his present senses. Such Tad Angam regulative principles are mainly based on hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord. So we saw Jnana. Jnana is first Jnana is about the Lord is the supreme person, and then the way one will get the realization of it, one starts to love the Lord and practices the principles of devotional service. He will get the realization and he will be absorbed in bliss, and he will be very clearly able to see the Lord and Maya separate, and he will not be devoured by Maya. He will not be hankering at the reflection, rather he will not be carried away by shadow, rather he will take shelter of the real substance, Vastavik Vastu, who is Krishna. And this is what is being discussed in this verse. In a very brief I have given you. Now we will have a small presentation on this, and we will discuss more on this. Okay. It's now Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur says, the Bhagavatam composed of these 4 verses given as answers by the Lord is famous since it is spoken by the Lord himself. That is expressed in this verse. Not only will I give you knowledge of my form, but also realization as well. Moreover, this form is rarely understood, Paramaguhyam, which much superior to knowledge of the impersonal Brahman. I will explain what is intimate Rahasyam. What is that Rahasyam? Prema Bhakti. Realize Prema Bhakti, which is accomplished by that knowledge of my form. Prema is well known as Rahasya from statements such as Sugopyam api vakshyami. I will speak to you about this most secret knowledge. So Krishna speaks to Uddhava. I will also explain by mercy about sadhana bhakti and anga of prema, though you did not ask. Thus I will explain 3 things: my form, prema bhakti and sadhana bhakti. Moreover, though you asked about these 3 through instructions from me, I will explain this in 4 verses so that materialistic people do not understand. Since it is confidential, they will not be able to understand. By mention of prema and sadhana bhakti, it should be understood that the Lord also teaches about chanting the name of the Lord, which is explained in the first canto and which is more secret and more excellent than the most secret knowledge of the Lord's forms. Why it is like that? Why chanting is more secret than the form is the question. More than the form, the name is even more confidential. Simple. Because the form is revealed from the name. Right? Nama, Rupa, Guna, Leela. You hear, no? So name reveals everything. So chanting the names of the Lord, who is going to engage in that? Somebody engages in that is going to be taken to from the little Adav Shraddha, from Komal Shraddha, he can go to the level of Prema by following a perfect process. Okay. Are you following? Okay. The Lord will especially give understanding to Brahma, and therefore he instructs him to try to understand, even though he is already attentive. Maya Grahana. This is the point, He is making a point that Brahma is really attentive, he is really putting. Sometimes when you make some point, you just make sure that this point is heard by the receiver or the audience. So you just make sure, hey, come on, put your attention now. Even though you may be attentive, still the speaker is taking an advantage to drive an important point. Like that Krishna here is saying that although you are attentive, but now please focus more. I'm going to speak something very important, very confidential. Now, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is also the Chatushloki is being discussed. So I'm going to read a quote from Srila Prabhupada's Purport, where he is discussing all these things. From this and the preceding 3 verses of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which have been selected from Srimad Bhagavatam, the missionary activities of Lord Chaitanya can be understood. Srimad Bhagavatam has 18,000 verses, which are summarized in the 4 verses beginning with Aham Evasam Evagre and concluding with Yatsyat Sarvatra Sarvadha. In the first of these verses, the transcendental nature of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is explained. The second verse further explains that the Lord is detached from the workings of the material energy Maya. The living entities, although parts and parcels of Lord Krishna, are prone to be controlled by the external energy. Therefore, although they are spiritual, in the material world they are encased in bodies of material energy. The eternal relationship of the living entities with the Supreme Lord is explained in that verse. The next verse instructs that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by his inconceivable energy, is simultaneously one with and different from the living entities and the material energy. This knowledge is called Achintya Beda Beda Tattva. When an individual living entity surrenders to the Supreme Lord, Krishna, he can then develop natural transcendental love for him. This surrendering process should be the primary concern of a human being. In the next verse, 56, it is said that a conditioned soul must ultimately approach a bona fide spiritual master and try to understand perfectly the material and spiritual worlds and his own existential position. Here the words Anvaya Vatirekyabhyam directly and indirectly suggest that one must learn the process of devotional service in its 2 aspects. One must directly execute the process of devotional service and indirectly avoid the impediments to progress. Now, what I will do, I will read this again afterwards. Now, there is a small commentary given by Srila Jiva Goswami on this. I'm just going to read that section. In this verse, the Lord says, please accept this transcendental Vedic knowledge that I, the Supreme Personality of God, am speaking to you. Others do not possess this knowledge. Srila Jiva Goswami says, others do not know, so hear from me. The words Paramaguhyam here means this knowledge is most confidential, more confidential than the knowledge of the impersonal Brahman. That this is so is confirmed in the following words from Bhagavatam. O great sage, among many millions who are liberated and perfect in knowledge of liberation, one may be a devotee of Lord Narayana or Krishna. Such devotees who are fully peaceful are extremely rare. In addition, as Sri Jiva Goswami explains in the same Sandarbha and Anucheda, the Lord has hinted in this text at the 4 topics he will present to Brahma in the Bhagavatam. The Srimad Bhagavatam's 4 seed verses. Okay. Now, before we get into the Chatushloki verses, we will see the background of these verses and try to get into the subject matter. So, Lord Krishna spoke these 4 verses to, in fact, Lord Krishna spoke, as we see from the verse 31 of this chapter, to verse 37. There are about 6 verses the Lord spoke. But these 4 verses form it's very much there. It's being called as a Chatushloki, wherein all the essence of the Bhagavatam is contained in these 4 verses. There is an interesting letter that Srila Prabhupada had written very early days of our movement, at the beginning of our movement, in 1969. And His Holiness Suhotra Maharaj, in his study of the Chatushloki, he somehow took this letter, and then he saw that in this letter, the Chatushloki Bhagavatam, the message of the Chatushloki Bhagavatam is right there encapsulated in this letter. We will go through this letter, and when we go through the purports that Srila Prabhupada had given in this Chatushloki, we will deal with those specific things that Srila Prabhupada had given in this letter. We will relate in those purport also. So I thought we will just go through this letter. God is the Supreme Lord. The living entities are qualitatively one with God, or living entities and God are one in quality, but by quantity, God is great. As such, the living entities are eternal servitors and subordinate of God, maintained by the Supreme Lord. This relationship is eternal, therefore time is also eternal. So I just split this whole letter. Just here I have just given you a hint that this letter was in 1969 March. There are 2 kinds of natures, the spiritual nature and the material nature. Material nature is temporary and spiritual nature is permanent. Material nature is simply temporary manifestation within the jurisdiction of spiritual nature. We all know that we have in the Goloka chart, we see there is the whole spiritual abode is there. In one corner, there are clouds being formed. Sometimes there are clouds being formed. That's the dark portion. So that is the material nature. So that's what Prabhupada is saying. Material nature is simply temporary manifestation within the jurisdiction of the spiritual nature. The living entity, somehow or other, being entrapped by material nature, are meeting all kinds of material conditions. His birth, death, old age and diseases are due to his contact with this material nature. The living entity is evolving different kinds of material body, numbering 84 lakh different forms. The human form is a great opportunity for the living entity to understand God, the living entity, time, nature and different activities. The material activities are temporary. Therefore, if the living entities are trained to transform his activities from material to spiritual, he regains his original spiritual nature. And after such achievements, he is promoted to the spiritual world, which is far beyond this visible material sky. All these understandings are based on the authentic Vedic knowledge. Now, so far we saw that it is explained God is a supreme person, and the Supreme Lord has got energies and he has got both the natures. There is a spiritual nature and material nature. So the jivas are belonging to his superior nature, but somehow it is attracted by the material nature, and finally, because of that attraction to the material nature, it is getting transformed into different species. It goes through the birth, death, old age, disease. And 84 lakh forms are there, and in 8 different forms he's having different relationships with the material nature, and the cycle is going on. And Prabhupada says that one can come out of this cycle by bringing back our relationship with our superior nature, the spiritual nature. So, and this is what the Krishna consciousness movement is meant for, that this understanding we are getting from the scriptures, and we are meant to revive our original consciousness, our real nature with the Supreme Lord. So the Krishna consciousness movement is for enlightenment of all human beings without any sectarian understanding of faith. Our principle is that the human being has to awaken his dormant love of God. This is the final point, that we all have eternal relationship with the Lord, and we have to develop that relationship with the Lord, which is dormant in us. Krishna Kaviraj Goswami is pointing out in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhya Kabunoi Shravanadi Suddhe Chitte Karayudai. So our relationship with the Lord is eternal, and it is now dormant because of conditioning in this material world. Now one can revive that relationship by engaging in the activities by which we can develop love of God. Primarily, that is chanting the names of the Lord. Okay. Now, we saw in this prelude, before we go to the verse where Brahma asked these questions: what are the forms of the Lord, both in matter and in transcendence? How are the different energies of the Lord working? How does the Lord play with these different energies? And how may Brahma be instructed to discharge the duty entrusted to him? Prabhupada writes in the purport to this verse number 30. So 31, he gives these verses. So that's really, these are the 4 verses for which forms the background for the answers from Lord Sri Krishna. Now we know the background that the Brahma performs so much austerities, and by these austerities he pleased the Lord, and in a very humble way he put these questions in front of the Lord, so that he will be, at the end of the day, he will know how to please the Lord by engaging in creation, sub-creation, and he simultaneously not get caught with the allurement which will eventually happen if you are not dependent on the Lord, or if you do not act as an instrument in the service of the Lord. So Brahma himself is saying that, my dear Lord, let me not be carried away by pride. So this is the background. And before the Supreme Lord starts to speak, he is giving a introduction, or just a prelude about what is this, what is it that he is going to speak, what is it that he is going to explain in these 4 seed verses. So knowledge about me as described in the scriptures which is very confidential, and has to be realized in conjunction with devotional service. The necessary paraphernalia for that process is being explained by me. You may take it up carefully. So knowledge about the Lord, simply put it in simple terms, knowledge about the Supreme Person and his shadow, which is Maya, and realization that the Lord and Maya, what is Lord, who is Lord, who is Supreme Person, how he is the cause of all causes, and how Maya is subservient to him. It's a shadow. How do you get this realization, as it is said here, only when you develop love for the Lord. How do you develop the love for the Lord? By engagement in devotional service. And how do you engage in devotional service? That knowledge also Krishna is giving in a very seed form in the Chatushloki. And of all those activities that you perform, it starts with the sadhana bhakti, ends up in prema bhakti, by which you develop love for God. When you are situated in love of God, you will never be attracted by Maya. This is the encapsulated philosophy that is going to be discussed. Now we will, the same Chatushloki which is discussed in the Bhagavatam is discussed by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when he had a dealing with Prakashananda Saraswati. Now we will see some verses from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita which leads to the discussion of Chatushloki in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Now we are going to the Madhya Leela, chapter 25, how all the residents of Varanasi became Vaishnavas. I'm going to read some text from the verse 86. We know Prakashananda Saraswati, by the association of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he became completely attracted by the Lord, and he submitted, along with his followers, he submitted to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he accepted Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, and he accepted his supremacy. Further, he one day he came and fell at the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he wanted to know the essential teachings of the Vedanta Sutra, and how Srimad Bhagavatam is a direct commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. All these things he wanted to know from the Supreme Lord himself. So that is the background that we are looking into. Henceforward, I shall certainly develop devotional service unto your lotus feet. For this reason, I have come to you and have fallen down at your lotus feet. After saying this, Prakashananda Saraswati sat down with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and began to question the Lord as follows. Mayavade karila jata doshera akyana sabe jani acharjair kalpita vyakyan. Prakashananda Saraswati said, we can understand the faults you have pointed out in the Mayavada philosophy. All the explanations given by Shankaracharya are imaginary. Sutrere karila tumi mukyartha vivarana Tahashuni Shabhara Haila Chamatkara. My dear Lord, whatever direct meaning you have given when explaining the Brahma Sutra is certainly very wonderful to all of us. Even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained all those things to Prakashadananda Saraswati before. Tumita Ishwara Tumar Ache Sarva Shakti Shangshepa Rupe Kaha Tumi Shunite Haimati. You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead and therefore you have inconceivable energies. I wish to hear from you briefly about the Brahma Sutra. Text and even Prabhu kahe ami jiva ati tuchya gyan Vyasa sutrera gambira artha Vyasa bhagavan. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied, I am an ordinary living being and therefore my knowledge is very insignificant. However, the meaning of the Brahma Sutra is very grave because its author Vyasadeva is the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. Tara sutrera artha kona jivana hijan Ateva pane sutrartha karya che vyakyan. The purport of the Vedanta Sutra is very difficult for an ordinary person to understand, but Vyasadeva, out of his costless mercy, has personally explained the meaning. Jai Sutra Karta Se Jadi Karai Vyakyan Tabe Sutrera Mula Artha Lokera Hayajnan. If the Vedanta Sutra is explained by Vyasadeva himself, who has written it, its original meaning can be understood by the people in general. Pranavera Jayartha Gayatri Te Shehai Seyartha Chatushloki Te Vivariyakai. The meaning of the sound vibration Omkara is present in the Gayatri mantra. The same is elaborately explained in the 4 shlokas of the Srimad Bhagavatam known as the Chatushloki. Brahma Reishwara Chatushloki He Kahila Brahma Naradeshe Upadesha Kahila. Whatever was spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead to Lord Brahma in those 4 verses of Srimad Bhagavatam was also explained to Narada by Lord Brahma. Narada She Artha Vyaser Kahila Shuni Veda Vyasamane Vichara Karila. Whatever Lord Brahma told Narada Muni was again explained by Narada Muni to Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva later considered these instructions in his mind. E Artha Mara Sutrer Vyakyana Rupa Bhagavata Kariba Sutrera Bhashya Swarupa. Srila Vyasadeva considered that whatever he had received from Narada Muni as an explanation of Omkara, he would elaborately explain in his book Srimad Bhagavatam as a commentary on the Brahma Sutra. Chari Veda Upanishade Jata Kichu Hai Tarartha Lai Vyas Karila Sanchai. Vyasadeva collected whatever Vedic conclusions were in the 4 Vedas and 108 Upanishads and placed them in the aphorisms of the Vedanta Sutra. So, Vedanta Sutra contains the essence of all the Upanishads. Now, what is happening? Jai Sutra Jai Gurik Vishay Vachan Bhagavate Shairik Shloke Nibandhan. In the Vedanta Sutra, the purport of all Vedic knowledge is explained, and in Srimad Bhagavatam, the same purport has been explained in 18,000 verses. Ataeva Brahma Sutrer Bhashya Shri Bhagavat Bhagavata Shloka Upanishad Kahe Ekamata. Therefore, it is concluded that the Brahma Sutra is explained vividly in Srimad Bhagavatam. Also, what is explained in the verses of the Srimad Bhagavatam has the same purport as what is explained in the Upanishad. So, that is why we can see there is a connection of verses from Brahma Sutra or the Vedanta Sutra with Bhagavatam. There is a corresponding verse in the Brahma Sutra. There is the verse which is in Vedanta Sutra. You can see a corresponding verse in the Bhagavatam. And then we can see the correlation that how Bhagavatam is the direct commentary of Upanishads or the Vedanta Sutra. And many times we saw that also when we were studying Ishopanishad. We saw some of the verses of Ishopanishad, Ishavasyam idam sarvam, Etkiti Jagatyam Jagat. The same verse which is there in the Ishopanishad, we see similar verse, Atmavasyam Jagat Sarvam, like that. We saw some similar verses from Upanishad and Bhagavatam. And there are many other verses we saw where there is a direct relation between Vedanta Sutra and the Bhagavatam. Immediately that verse is given here. Atmavasyam idam vishwam yat kinchit jagatyam jagat tyena tyaktena bhunjita magrada kasya svidhanam. Okay. So this is the verse from the Bhagavatam, and we have a similar verse in the Ishopanishad. So I just want to give you a background that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this Prakashananda Saraswati, he requested Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to elaborate on this subject matter, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in turn he took this message and he further elaborated on this. So there is a relation on the Bhagavatam and the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So now we will come back to this. So this is where we stop. We will just continue from there. Bhagavater Sambandha Abhidaya Prayojan Chatushlokite Prakatatara Karija Chelakan. The essence of Srimad Bhagavatam, our relationship with the Supreme Lord, our activities in that connection and the goal of life is manifest in the 4 verses of the Srimad Bhagavatam known as the Chatushloki. Everything is explained in those verses. Now, here Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is pointing out that this Bhagavatam, Chatushloki, can be seen from the perspective of Sambandha, Abhidaya and Prayojana. So we know that the entire Vedic lore can be classified into Sambandha, Abhidaya and Prayojana. Sambandha talks about who is Lord, who we are, what is our relationship with the Lord, what is our relationship with the material nature. All this knowledge you get from this Sambandha. So Sambandha Jnana forms a fundamental basis. Without Sambandha, we do not know what to do in our life. So Sambandha is very, very much important. And after having known the Sambandha, what is the goal of life, what we are supposed to do, what is our interaction with this material nature, then what is it that we need to do, how we should act in our life, which is given by the Abhidaya process, the process by which we act. And we act for what? That is given by, what is the result of our action is given in the Prayojana. So here, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is explaining that Sambandha, Abhidaya, Prayojana is, we are going to see the Sambandha, Abhidaya, Prayojana in the Chatushloki. In fact, we have Srila Prabhupada trained the disciples also, even the Bhagavad Gita or any subject matter we can see. In fact, the whole of any Srila Prabhupada's book, what our commentary has given, we can see, we can just, anything we take, we can immediately, let it be a particular verse, let it be some portions of the purport, can immediately classify that either it is Sambandha or Abhidaya or Prayojana. Sometimes a verse may have a combination of both, not like that. So then it's the whole subject matter is very clear. So now we will see the Sambandha aspect of what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained to Prakashananda Saraswati. Srishtira purve shadaishwarya purnamita haye prapancha prakriti purusha amate laye. Before the creation of the cosmic manifestation, the Lord said, I existed, and the total material energy, material nature and the living entities all existed in me. There was never a time everything was void. Everything existed in the Lord. Srishtikari tara madhye ami praveshiye prapanchaje dekasabha seha ami haye. After creating the cosmic manifestation, I entered into it. Whatever you see in the cosmic manifestation is but an expansion of my energy. Pralaye avashishtami purnahaye prakrita prapanchapai amate laye. When the whole universe dissolves, I remain full in myself, and everything that was manifested is again preserved in me. So now, this verse is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in the gist he gave, he expanded this verse. Aham evasam evagre nanyat yat sadasat param paschadaham yad etacha yo vasishyeta sosmyaham. Now, this is what he explained in the last 3 verses that we saw. Prior to the cosmic manifestation, only I exist and no phenomena exist, either gross, subtle or primordial. After creation, only I exist in everything, and after annihilation, only I remain eternally. This is what the Lord spoke to Brahma. That's what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu expanded in his teachings to Prakashananda. Now continuing, now the Sambandha aspect, one aspect is explained. Now again, further aspect on Sambandha is being explained by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Aham eva shloke aham tina bharam purnaishwarya shri vigraha stitira nirdhara. In the verse beginning aham eva, the word aham is expressed 3 times. In the beginning there are the words aham eva. In the second line there are the words paschad aham. At the end are the words sosmyaham. This aham indicates the Supreme Person. By the repetition of aham, the transcendental personality who is complete with 6 opulences is confirmed. So the personality of the Lord is established. Lord is a person. And he exists. The existence is also established. The Lord exists even before the creation. And he exists with his paraphernalia. So that is being established. The next aspect of Sambandha is not started. We are still with the aham evasam evagre that's being discussed. Okay. Je vigraha nahi mane nirakar mane Tare tiraskari bhare karila nirdharane. Impersonalists do not accept the personal feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Personality of Godhead is stressed in this verse in order to impress upon them the necessity of accepting Him. Therefore, the word aham is mentioned 3 times. To stress something important, one repeats it 3 times. This is amazing, these Mayavadis. So, it is self-evident and clear in this verse. Krishna is saying, every time he is saying aham, aham, aham 3 times. In fact, Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur in his commentary on this verse, he says that the Lord, he's just hitting at his chest and saying that just I who existed. The Lord with this beautiful form is saying that it is me. Okay, you surrender to me. This is the message he's giving. But they are so screwed up that they just come up with a convoluted meaning. They say that it's not it is not referring to the Lord, but they come up with different. So that's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is pointing out here that 3 times a person is saying, which means you have to take importance. You have to understand that the Lord is a person. Is very clearly it is indicated. Eshabha Shabdehaya Jnana Vijnana Viveka Maya Karja Maya Haite Amivya Tireka. Lord Krishna continued, actual spiritual knowledge and its practical application are considered in all these sound vibrations. Although the external energy comes from me, I am different from it. So here now is introducing the concept of external energy. So, but I am different from the external energy. Very clearly saying, I am different from it. Jaiche Shureristane Bhasaye Abhasa Surya Vina Satantratara Nahaya Prakasha. Sometimes a reflection of the sun is experienced in place of the sun, but its illumination is never possible independent of the sun. So we will discuss about it. There is a reflection, the sun is there and its reflection is there. And there cannot be reflection or illumination without the presence of the sun. Okay. Now, Maya Tita Hailahaya Amara Anubhav Esha Bandha Tattva Kahilon Shuna Arashabha. When one is transcendently situated, he can perceive me. This perception is the basis of one's relationship with the Supreme Lord. Now let me further explain this subject matter. So how one can perceive the Lord different from Maya? One should be transcendently situated. One should be within the internal potency of the Lord. Then only, that means what? One should have had realization. So that Vijnana, how that Vijnana will happen, that the Lord is going to explain further. Only a person who has developed love for the Lord can have that realization. Otherwise, it's not possible. So now the Bhagavatam verse is explained. Ritertam yat pratiyeta na pratiyeta chatmani tad vidyat atmano mayam yata bhaso yata tamaham. What appears to be truth without me is certainly my illusory energy, for nothing can exist without me. It is like a reflection of a real light in the shadows. For in the light, there are neither shadows nor reflections. Now, the verse which is leading to the what should be done to develop this, to come to this level is being discussed. Okay. Abhideya sadhana bhaktira sunaha vichar sarvajana desha kala dashate vyaptijar. Now, please hear from me about the process of devotional service which is applicable in any country for any person at all times and in all circumstances. Now, this is explaining the Abhideya, what should be done. Dharmadi Vishaya Jaiche Echari Vichar Sadhana Bhakti Echari Vichare Rapar. As far as religious principles are concerned, there is a consideration of the person, the country, the time and the circumstance. In devotional service, however, there are no such considerations. Devotional service is transcendental to all such considerations. So this is the point. So to come to that level of realization of seeing the Lord different from his Maya and seeing the Lord's superiority, one has to engage in an activity which will lead one to that realization. Sarva desha kala dhashai janera kartavya guru pashe she bhakti prishtavya shrotavya. It is therefore the duty of every man in every country, in every circumstance and at all times to approach a bona fide spiritual master, question him about devotional service and listen to him to explain the process. So now how then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is explaining, so to engage in the devotional service, how do you get that knowledge of the devotional service? You have to approach a bona fide spiritual master. He will impart you that knowledge. That's the point. So all the time, one should always be ready to endeavor for that, developing that pure devotional service. Etavad eva jignasyam tattva jignasunatmanah Anvaya Vyatirekyabhyam Yatsyat Sarvatra Sarvadha. A person interested in transcendental knowledge must therefore always directly and indirectly inquire about it to know about the all-pervading truth. So this is the Bhagavatam verse number 36, 2936. Now Prayojana talks about verse number 35. We will discuss that. Amate je priti se prema prayojan karja dware kahitada swarupa lakan. Supreme affection for me is called love of Godhead, and that is the ultimate goal of life. Let me explain by a practical example the natural characteristics of such love. Now this is the point. So, what is the prayojana? What is it that one has to develop pure love for God? Now, to see, unless one comes to the stage of pure love of God, one will not be able to one will not be able to come out of the influence of illusion. So, that's what here it's being explained. Panchabhuta jaicha bhuter bitare bahire bhaktagane spuriyami bahire antare. The five material elements are existing inside and outside of every living entity. Similarly, I, the Supreme Personality of God, am manifest within the heart of the devotee as well as outside his body. So this is an amazing, this is the Rahasya, this is a secret. The Lord, for the sake of his devotee, is present within and without. Because the devotee is completely absorbed in the Lord. And the Lord also reciprocates. So this is what is the Rahasyam. So we will see about that. Yata mahanti bhutani bhuteshu cha vacheshvanu pravistanya pravishtani tatateshu nateshvaham. As the material elements enter the bodies of all living beings and yet remain outside them all, I exist within all material creations and yet am not within them. So the Lord could simultaneously be within and be without. So the example that is given here is about the Panchabhutas, the material elements. Body is made up of the material elements, but we can see the material elements simultaneously being outside also. How is it possible? So this is called as the Parokshavada. Now through this is the verse. Through this indirect meaning, the Lord is trying to speak about the Rahasyam, the most secret of pure love which every jiva should develop for the Lord. That's what will please the Lord. And that is the only thing will please the jiva also. So Lord further says, Bhakta ama prema bhandyache hriday bhitare jahan netra pade tahan dekaye amare. A highly elevated devotee can bind me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in his heart by love. Wherever he looks, he sees me and nothing else. So this is the point. Now just to put it in summary, what we saw, this Bhagavatam verses, 4 Chatushloki verses, the corresponding verses in the Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela, wherein the verse Aham Evasam Evagre is expanded to 5 verses in the Madhya Leela, and that is corresponding to the Sambandha Jnana. The Tattva of Sambandha is explained there. And Jnanam, we see that in the prelude verse 2931, he speaks about Jnanam, Vijnanam, and then Saharasyam and Tadangam. So this refers to Jnana, the knowledge that one has to develop, that Krishna is supreme, his forms are supreme, and the material form is different from Krishna's form. This knowledge you develop. Then in the second verse, the Lord is explaining how he is different from the illusion. How the illusion has got a different form and it is actually a reflection. And without the Lord, the shadow or the reflection got no existence. But it's a separate existence. And the jiva is bound by that external energy. So that is also a sambandha. It's showing the relationship of how the jiva should look at the reflection. That also comes under Sambandha. Again, in 4 verses in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami elaborates that. And then, just to clarify for you, so now, next the Lord is explaining that just going by the order of the Bhagavatam verse, in the 2935, the Lord is explaining the Prayojana Tattva, which is in the Chaitanya Charitamrita elaborated from the verse 124 to 127. The Prema Bhakti, Rahasyam is being explained there. So, so what is the point? So unless one develops that pure love, one will not be able to differentiate between this working, the difference. One will not be able to see properly the Lord and his wonderful form and the loving relationship. So one has to develop that love. And how do we develop that love? That is explained in the previous verse. Yat sarvatra sarvada. Anvekya vyatirekyabhyam. Which directly and indirectly, favorably and unfavorably, one has to engage in devotional service. That means unfavorable things he has to reject, favorable things he has to accept. And one has to follow the process that is given by the Supreme Lord himself, which is the sadhana bhakti. And that sadhana bhakti will lead one to the prema bhakti. And that sadhana bhakti, how do you practice? How do you practice the sadhana bhakti? From whom you get it? You get it from bona fide spiritual masters. So now these things will be very elaborately discussed in the purports by Srila Prabhupada. Okay? So this is the whole philosophical basis of understanding of this Chatushloki. So this is what in the prelude the Lord speaks about it and he elaborates it in these 4 verses. In sutra form he gives that. And in the Chaitanya Charitamrita it is elaborated. And all great acharyas, Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, Srila Bhakti-vaibhava Thakur, Srila Jiva Goswami, Srila Sridhara Swami, all of them have elaborated on these 4 verses. And Srila Prabhupada has encapsulated the essence of all the previous acharyas in his commentaries, which we will try to see now. Okay. So then the Lord, after having spoken these verses, he says, Etan matam samatishta paramena samadhina bhavan kalpa vikalpeshu na vimuhyati karhichit. O Brahma, just follow this conclusion by fixed concentration of mind, and no pride will disturb you, neither in the partial nor in the final devastation. So Prabhupada in the commentary for the 36th verse, Yat Sarvatra Sarvada, in that particular verse, is concluding in the purport, he is giving this message. The final conclusion, therefore, is that the glories of the Lord must be always and everywhere proclaimed. One should hear about his glories, one should chant about his glories, and one should always remember his glories, because that is the highest perfectional stage of life. Same verse we were seeing these verses in the Sarvatra Sarvada in the second canto, second chapter, verses 36. I think it speaks about that. And so many verses we can see in the second canto itself where it is speaking about finally one has to engage in glorifying the Lord. One has to give, not only one should personally engage in glorifying the Lord, and one should also give this knowledge to others so that others will also engage in the glorification of the Lord. So we get this process of chanting the holy names of the Lord, hearing Harikatha, and also we give this knowledge to the conditioned souls who are struggling in this material world. So ultimately, glorifying the Lord by chanting his names is the recommended process that is given by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, and all the great acharyas, they appreciate that. Hare Krishna. So, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this chanting of the Maha Mantra will actually revive the dormant consciousness of pure love which is hidden in our heart. By the mercy of the spiritual master, we will be able to develop that pure love for God. Okay, now before we start go to the Chatushloki, we have one more verse to cover, verse number 32. And before that, I'll just recap of what we saw in the slides, so that we get an idea from the commentary that Srila Prabhupada gave in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela, text 56. Adi Leela, chapter 1, text 56. From this and the preceding 3 verses of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which have been selected from the Srimad Bhagavatam, the missionary activities of Lord Chaitanya can be understood. Srimad Bhagavatam has 18,000 verses, which are summarized in the 4 verses beginning with Aham Evasam Evagre and concluding with Yat Syat Sarvatra Sarvadha, 56. In the first of these verses, the transcendental nature of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is explained. The second verse, 54, further explains that the Lord is detached from the workings of the material energy Maya. The living entities, although parts and parcels of Lord Krishna, are prone to be controlled by the external energy. Therefore, although they are spiritual, in the material world they are encaged in bodies of material energy. The eternal relationship of the living entities with the Supreme Lord is explained in that verse. The next verse, 55, instructs that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by his inconceivable energies, is simultaneously one with and different from the living entities and with material energy. So this is the secret. Tad Rahasyam. Sah Rahasyam. This knowledge is called Achintya Bheda Veda Tattva. When an individual living entity surrenders to the Supreme Lord, Krishna, he can then develop natural transcendental love for him. This surrendering process should be the primary concern of a human being. Yat sarvatra sarvada. That's the whole point. In the next verse 56, it is said that a conditioned soul must ultimately approach a bona fide spiritual master and try to understand perfectly the material and spiritual worlds and his own existential position. Here the words Anvaya Vatirekabhyam, directly and indirectly, suggest that one must learn the process of devotional service in its two aspects. One must directly execute the process of devotional service and indirectly avoid the impediments to progress. In the definition for the angas of Sharanagati, this is explained. Anukulyasya sankalpa, pratikulyasya varjanam. So both are required. Whatever that is favorable you practice, you have to avoid the unfavorable things also, because that will obstruct your favorable process of devotional service. Okay, now the Lord, after having said this, he is actually showering his causeless mercy on Brahma. Yavanaham yata bhavo yadrupa gunakarmakah tataiva tattva vijnanam astute mat anugrahat. All of me, namely my actual eternal form and my transcendental existence, color, qualities and activities, let all be awakened within you by factual realization out of my causeless mercy. So ultimately, it's the Lord's causeless mercy which invokes the realization in the devotee, the life of a devotee. Here Brahma is being bestowed by the mercy of the Lord so that he could see the Lord's eternal form and how he is different from the illusory energy, and how his form is above his devotees. By the mercy of the Lord, he could see it. Secret of success in understanding the intricacies of the knowledge of the absolute truth, the personality of God, is the causeless mercy of the Lord. Even in the material world, the father of many sons discloses the secret to his position to the pet sons. Of his position to the pet sons. The father discloses the confidence unto the son whom he thinks worthy. An important man in the social order can be known by his mercy only. Similarly, one must be very dear to the Lord in order to know the Lord. No. So the Lord, that Lord can be known only by his mercy. That's the whole point. No, Prabhupada further says in the purport, here we can see that the Lord is sufficiently pleased with Brahmaji, and therefore he offers his causeless mercy to him, so that Brahmaji may have the factual realization of the Lord by his mercy only. So this is the ultimate point. So if the Lord showers his mercy, then we will be able to see things in proper perspective. So the mercy is costless. No, this is another point. That the bhakti, you can get the mercy of the Lord by your qualities or by your endeavors. Not that in itself actually invokes the Lord's mercy. The Lord, out of his own free will, he gives the mercy, but usually that happens by the mercy of the devotee. When one gets a devotee's mercy, then by that mercy the Lord becomes subdued, or the Lord becomes controlled by the mercy of the devotee, and he showers his mercy to whomever his devotee is recommending. This is the science. The Lord discloses his form even to the extent of measurement to his pure devotees, and that is the meaning of Yavan, as explained by Srila Jiva Goswami, the greatest scholar of Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is the point. So the Lord does not show his form to the impersonalists. In fact, they deride the Lord's form. They say that the Lord is formless, but to his pure devotees, the Lord reveals himself. It's a long purport. You can take a look at it leisurely and see how the Lord is so merciful to his devotee. Prabhupada smashes the misconceptions of the Mayavadis, and he establishes how the Lord's personal form is superior, and to his devotees he reveals it. The impersonal interpretation of the mundane wranglers is completely refuted in this verse, because it is clearly stated here that the Supreme Lord has his qualities, form, pastimes and everything else that a person has. All these descriptions of the transcendental nature of the personality of Godhead are factual realizations by the devotee of the Lord. And by the causeless mercy of the Lord, they are revealed to his pure devotee and to no one else. So this is the point. Now we can see how many verses like this we see in the Bhagavad Gita, in the Bhagavatam, when the devotees offer prayers to the Lord. We can see, yesterday we were just reading Chitraketu's realization. Chitraketu got the mercy from Narada Muni and Angira Rishi. Narada Muni gave him a mantra to worship Sankarshana. He was sincerely praying for 1 week. He just drank a little water and he was completely absorbed in chanting the mantra, in trying to please Sankarshana. At the end of his practice of that chanting of this mantra, he got audience of Lord Sankarshana. He was right in front of the Lord, face to face, along with him. The Kumaras were also around Sankarshana. And he saw the Lord and he was explaining the beauty of the Lord. He's explaining how the Lord's transcendental form is so spotlessly white, like the white lotus flower. And he said he was wearing a beautiful bluish garment, and he is having a wonderful helmet. He was having earrings and anklets. All these things are explained. So how are you going to explain that the Lord does not have a form? How can you, to the formless, you can put all these paraphernalia? Maybe you can do some magic so that these paraphernalia can stand on a formless thing. So again we can see in this verse, same thing, Prabhupada is pointing out that this verse is so evident that the Lord by his causeless mercy has revealed this form. Since they are not able to see the form, they are just pointing out that the Lord does not have a form and he is formless. They are only seeing the material nature, they can't see more than that. You see, this is the point that is being explained here. Be blessed, the Lord tells Brahma, by my causeless mercy, may you practically realize everything about me, my eternal form, qualities, and the transcendental nature of my existence and activities. Thus, in text 32, the Lord blesses Brahma so that all knowledge, jnana, and realization, vijnana, will awaken in him. The secret of realizing this is, Srila Prabhupada states in his purport to attain the Lord's causeless mercy. The Lord discloses his form even to the extent of his measurement to his pure devotees. That's the thing. We also saw in the previous chapters, even the measurement of Paramatma, how long he is, everything is given to the devotee. So here the point is mentioned here. Here the blessing for the realization is obvious, and there is also a blessing in connection with the Rahasya, the most secret confidential essence, because the supreme blissful direct perception of these matters necessarily gives rise to pure love. Okay. So when one has got the causeless mercy, means that by that causeless mercy one will have pure love for Lord. And because of being in the level of prema, he will not be influenced by Maya. Then he can see everything factual. That's the factual realization. Are you able to follow the question that you asked me before? Yeah. So now let's get into the Chatushloki verses. We'll see the first verse, text 33. So what we will do is we will go through some sections of the purport. Then you, as an assignment, as a homework, you please go through the entire purport, and then based on some of the topics that we have categorized, you can follow that and then make notes out of it. Okay. Ahameva samevagre nanyat yat sadasat param paschadaham yad etacha yovashishyeta sosmyaham. Brahma, it is I, the personality of Godhead, who was existing before the creation, when there was nothing but myself, nor was there the material nature, the cause of this creation. That which you see now is also I, the personality of Godhead. And after annihilation, what remains will also be I, the personality of Godhead. Now what I have done is it's a very long purport, probably this purport and then the last purport, the longest size of purport Prabhupada is given in the Bhagavatam commentaries. So, but I have summarized just from taking the reference also from Burijan Prabhu's, His Grace Burijan Prabhu's book on Unveiling Lotus Feet. I have some of the notes we have referred, and we have incorporated it. We have incorporated it here in this purport. Okay. So this is the point. Nothing exists beyond the I mentioned in this verse. That I is the absolute truth, the supreme personality of Godhead, the Lord of Vaikuntha, not the all is the formless Brahman of the impersonalist. Now in the very first paragraph, Prabhupada discusses about this. This is the essence of the message, that the Lord is saying that when he says I, he is referring to the Supreme Lord. Now, in the beginning we saw one letter of Prabhupada. So I said that some sections from that letter also we will see, we are connected that to this purport. God is the Supreme Lord. He's a person. So that's what Prabhupada discusses. So some part of the purport I will read, some parts we will just skip it. You can do it as a homework in your assignment. The impersonalist puts forth the theory of oneness in the sense that Brahma, also being the same principle of I, because he is an emanation from the I, the absolute truth is identical with the Lord, the principle of I, and that there is thus nothing more than the principle of I, as mentioned in this verse. Even if we accept the argument of the impersonalist, it is to be admitted that the Lord is the creator I, that Brahma is the created I. Therefore, there is a difference between the two I's, namely the predominator I and the predominated I. Therefore, there are still two I's, even if you accept the argument of the impersonalist. So now this is the point. Immediately Prabhupada is quoting Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetananam. So recently there was someone who was giving a class, he was explaining that actually it is everything is Krishna, there is nothing other than Krishna. It's true, there is nothing other than Krishna, but again, we should not forget that there is the predominator and the predominated. Krishna is the predominator and we are all predominated. So that point is there. So immediately we can see Prabhupada is quoting Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetananam in this commentary. So the otherwise why there is a maintainer and there is someone who is being maintained. This is a Shruti mantra. Okay. Again in the letter Prabhupada gives this very clear point. He says that the living entities are qualitatively one with God, or in other words, living entities and God are one in quality, but by quantity God is great. So we are not totally distinct. We are in connection. I will give you these notes. Yet a second I exists as the individual souls, non-different from the Lord, who are one in quality with the Creator, yet are the created. Both are individuals. The difference between these I's is their quantity, not their quality. That is, one is a predominator I and the other is the predominated I. Both I's, the predominator and the predominated, are persons. Brahma is seeing the predominator I, the Lord face to face. That predominator is the source of all and he exists before, during and after the material creation. So it's a very clear point mentioned here that the Lord exists individually. The Lord is a person that's being indicated. So Prabhupada again, the purport he points out, the creator I and the created I are accepted in the Vedas as qualitatively one because both of them are Nityas and Chetanas. But the singular I is the creator I and the created I's are of plural number because there are many I's, like Brahma and those generated by Brahma. It is the simple truth. The father creates or begets a son and the son also creates many other sons. And all of them may be one as human beings. But at the same time, the father, the son and the grandsons are all different. The son cannot take the place of the father, nor can the grandson. This is many times we hear this simple example. We are all one. Oh, we are all one. What are you speaking? Yes, we are all human beings. And then within that, he is the father, he is the grandfather, he is the son, he is male, she is female. So many differences are there. Simultaneously one as human beings, simultaneously different as different roles that we take up in that species of being human beings. Is it clear? As such, the living entities are eternal servitors and subordinate of God, maintained by the Supreme Lord. This relationship is eternal, therefore time is also eternal. So how Prabhupada is saying in that letter, time is eternal. How time is eternal? Because the relationship the jivas have with the Supreme Lord is eternal. And the jivas are eternally engaged in the service of the Lord. The conclusion refutes the conclusion of the impersonalist that in the ultimate issue everything is impersonal. This impersonal feature stressed by the less intelligent impersonalist school is refuted by pointing out that the predominant I is the absolute truth and he is a person. The predominant I, Brahma, is also a person, but he is not the absolute. For realization of one's self in spiritual psychology, it may be convenient to assume oneself to be the same principle as the absolute truth. But there is always a difference of the predominator and the predominator, as clearly pointed out here in this verse, which is grossly misused by the impersonalists. Brahma is factually seeing face to face his predominator Lord, who exists in his transcendental eternal form, even after the annihilation of the material creation. The form of the Lord, as seen by Brahma, existed before the creation of Brahma and the material manifestation, with all the ingredients and agents of material creation. So, the Lord, he had everything within him. Everything before the creation, everything was within the Lord. That is what is being mentioned here. And after the exhibition of the Lord's energies comes to your close, what remains is the same personality of Godhead. So here it is mentioned, avasishyate. Everything remains in him. Now Prabhupada, to substantiate these points that the Lord is a person, there are so many references he is giving from various Upanishads, Puranas. So we are given a title. Srila Prabhupada quotes from scriptures to demonstrate that the Lord as a person exists eternally and transcendentally as the original source of creation. So we are not going through all those quotes. Again, I'm just going to the next topic that Prabhupada is speaking. Along with the Lord, the spiritual world, the eternal Vaikuntha planets exist in transcendental variegatedness. So we can see here how the Lord showed the different, the various abodes, the devotees, then Lakshmi Devi, then all of them engaging in service. We can see the Lord, even the Brahma Samhita also we can see the same thing the Lord is explaining. Now this you can see that here it is explaining Vasudeva idam agrasin. So after all those things at the end of the paragraph, then that point is substantiated. Now along with the Lord, the spiritual world, the eternal Vaikuntha planets exist in transcendental variegatedness. Now we can see here, the Vaikuntha planets are full of transcendental variegatedness, including the four-handed residents of those planets with great opulence of wealth and prosperity. And there are even airplanes and other amenities required for high-grade personalities. So Prabhupada speaks about that how these Vaikuntha planets are eternal in nature, or they are Sanatana. Those transcendental planets are of a different nature altogether, and that nature is not subjected to the rules and regulations of material creation, maintenance, or annihilation. The existence of the personality of God implies the existence of the Vaikuntha Lokas, as the existence of the king implies the existence of a kingdom. This is a very nice analogy. So when you say the king exists, here is a king, that means king is not going to be separate. King has his followers, he has his abode, he has his place, he has his retinue. Everything is there. You understand? So that's a very nice analogy Prabhupada substantiates for that. Now from the Bhagavatam and again from other scriptures, Prabhupada points out the his eternal existence. Okay, so that is being explained. Then there are so many quotes which I am not going to go through. Then Prabhupada explains, the Lord exists personally but works through his energies, just as a king lives and acts through his government, his energies. Even though the king may not be seen in every government office, he is nevertheless the source of all government power. Now Prabhupada speaks how then the Lord acts. So he gives the example of how the king along with his government employees, he is able to manage the creation. So Prabhupada also gives the example of the sun, and you can just see how we can be able to see. But actually, he is always in his eternal form in his Vaikuntha planets as well as in other planets of the universe as different incarnations. The example of the sun is very appropriate in this connection. At night, the sun may not be visible to the eyes of men in the darkness, but the sun is visible whenever it has risen. That the sun is not visible to the eyes of the inhabitants of a particular planet of the earth does not mean that the sun has no form. So this Prabhupada points out to those atheists and other wranglers who don't accept that the Lord has a form. Okay. Now Prabhupada in this purport this particular verse establishes that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. Now even before the Purusha avatars, the Lord existed. Now Prabhupada is giving sufficient evidence from the Bhagavad Gita and then from other Upanishads. He is establishing that the Lord existed even before the Purusha avatars. Okay. Now Prabhupada further explains that how the Lord is impersonal through his energies in the material world, but is ultimately personal. One mainly sees the Lord's impersonal form with one's material senses. In that way, it can be said that the Lord's impersonal aspect is the immediate cause, and the personal form, the cause of all causes, or the remote cause. This also is explained in the 6th canto of the Bhagavatam, that there is a nimitta karana, pradhana karana, all those things are explained. Now Prabhupada is explaining here that somebody with the blunt senses, he could only think that it is impersonal. But to get the personal form, to see the personal form of the Lord, one has to be purified. That's Prabhupada is explaining that in this purport. Now, the 9. Both features of the Lord, his personal form and his impersonal formlessness, do exist. Yet, realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, not of the impersonal Brahman, is a goal for Krishna. is the Supreme Personality of God and the root cause of all. Thus the Lord has offered Brahma true knowledge of himself as the absolute truth, the source of all, including the impersonal Brahman of the individual souls and of the entirety of the material creation. So the Lord is showing that he is the basis of this impersonal Brahman, but devotees are concerned with the personal form of the Lord, and by the causeless mercy of the Lord they could see that. So the knowledge is given here in this verse that the Lord exists permanently. Okay, now in this particular section, I'm just going to read one small portion. There is no cause of all causes other than the Supreme Personality of God, Hari. Therefore, the verse under discussion beginning Aham Eva never indicates anything other than the Supreme Lord, and one should therefore follow the path of the Brahma Sampradaya, or the path from Brahmaji to Narada to Vyasadeva, etc., and make it a point in life to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, or Lord Krishna. This very confidential instruction to the pure devotees of the Lord was also given to Arjuna as well as to Brahma in the beginning of the creation. The demigods like Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara, Indra, Chandra and Varuna are undoubtedly different forms of the Lord for execution of different functions and the different elemental ingredients of material creation, as well as the multifarious energies, the emanations of the same personality of Godhead. But the root of all of them is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But the Sri Krishna, one should be attached to the root of everything rather than bewildered by the branches and leaves. That is the instruction given in this verse. Now, Srila Sridhara Swami, as I explained to you before, he says that this verse actually describes the extent of the Lord's existence. That the Lord is as a person is there, his existence. His existence. It's not that everything is void and null and there was nothing, everything is impersonal. No, he very clearly says the Lord is presence. He says Aham, so the Lord has no beginning or end. He is everything and has no equal. There is no one equal to him, and he is supreme as he is explained in this verse. Now, there's a huge commentary of Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur. Srila Prabhupada has encapsulated everything in his purport, but here and there a few things I wanted to highlight to you. He says, as I explained to you before, after promising knowledge and giving qualification by blessings in the two introductory verses. What are those two verses? Those verses in which he spoke about the prelude, and also he said, by my causeless mercy you can see, he's speaking. The Lord now teaches the first aspect of knowledge concerning the spiritual and material forms, as asked in the verse 26. No, he wanted to see those forms, right? He was asking. Touching his forefinger to his chest, the Lord says, I alone existed before the creation. By the word Eva, he excludes all others. Nothing of my category existed at that time. The most attractive form which you now see, a sweet ocean of form and quality, existed before the creation, at the time of great devastation of all the universes. Now again, Prabhupada also pointed out that in his purport, same thing Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur is also saying. The word Aham is repeated 3 times to define the Lord, who was a supreme form situated through all 3 phases of time and endowed with form and qualities, and which is visible at creation and destruction as the inferior form of the world made of matter. Thus, knowledge of the superior and inferior forms of the Lord has been explained. Brahma should have realization, Vijnanam of the first, the superior spiritual form. Okay, we discussed that. This realization will occur when Brahma can relish the sweetness of the Lord's form and qualities by Prema Bhakti, produced through hearing and chanting. Now, we spoke about this before, right? This is what Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur is saying. So, one develops Prema, and that will happen by hearing and chanting, and that is the process to be followed, which the Lord will explain further. So this will be, see, exactly Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur is saying. This will be explained in the 4th verse. What is the 4th verse? The 4th verse was the Chatushloki. Okay. Rutertam yat pratiyeta na pratiyeta chatmani tadvidyat atmano mayam yata bhaso yata tamaha. O Brahma, whatever appears to be of any value, if it is without relation to me, has no reality. Know it as my illusory energy, that reflection which appears to be in darkness. So, now, Prabhupada in that letter, he speaks about this. There are 2 kinds of natures, the spiritual nature and the material nature. Material nature is temporary and spiritual nature is permanent. Material nature is simply temporary manifestation within the jurisdiction of the spiritual nature. Now, Prabhupada in the beginning of this purport, he speaks about it. He basically summarizes the first 2 verses. In the previous verse, it has already been concluded that in any stage of the cosmic manifestation, its appearance, its sustenance, its growth, its interactions of different energies, its deterioration and its disappearance, all has its basic relation with the existence of the personality of Godhead. And as such, whenever there is forgetfulness of this prime relation with the Lord, and whenever things are accepted as real without being related to the Lord, that conception is called a product of the illusory energy of the Lord. Because nothing can exist without the Lord, it should be known that the illusory energy is also an energy of the Lord. The right conclusion of dovetailing everything in relationship with the Lord is called Yoga Maya. This is an amazing definition Prabhupada is giving here. Or the energy of the union, and the wrong conception of detaching a thing from its relationship with the Lord is called the Lord's Daivi Maya or Mahamaya. So both the Mayas also have connections with the Lord, because nothing can exist without being related to Him. As such, the wrong conception of detaching relationships from the Lord is not false but illusory. So Prabhupada points out very nicely. So when you dovetail everything relationship with the Lord, that is Yoga Maya. And when you see things separate from the Lord, that is, you are immediately under in illusion, Mahamaya. So, and nothing exists separately of the Lord also. Both the Mayas are in conjunction with the Lord. That's the point. Okay. Prabhupada further speaks about it. The material world is always changing but is not false, for it rests on the Lord. One's tendency to accept something that changes as eternal is an illusion caused by Maya. The material world should be accepted as a reflection of actual reality, as reflected light shining in the darkness. Sorry, I will increase the font size for you. Okay. So now this is the point, that's what, Sri Narottam Thakur very nicely sings in that song, Asatyere Satya Kori Mani. When you are in Maya, you will see the Asat to be Sat and Sat to be Asat. So this word is used here, Sadasat in this verse. In the first verse that was being used. So now Prabhupada, he brings out this amazing example to make this point out. He is speaking about how you falsely take the rope to be a snake. Yeah. So which is illusion. He speaks about that. Okay, now I'm not going to get inside the purport. Now I'm just going to see that Maya's last two traps are when living entities think themselves the Lord or imagine that the Lord is formless. Under all circumstances, both the Lord and the living entity possess form. The conception that, the Lord has a form, and when we are influenced by Maya, we imagine that the Lord is formless. This is the point. That's what Prabhupada discusses further in the purport. And Prabhupada also speaks that when the height of that Maya is when you think the last snare of Maya, when you see that I am supreme or I am God, and that is the last snare of Maya. Prabhupada in many places he speaks about that. The Vedanta Sutra confirms that everything comes from and is connected to the Lord. So Prabhupada makes a point again that how Krishna is the source of everything, or how the Lord is the cause of everything. And in the purport, he makes a point. Here he says that, it's an interesting one. He says, okay, I'll just give you a background. Persons with a poor fund of knowledge become illusioned, and therefore the so-called scientists, physiologists, empiric philosophers, etc. become dazzled by the glaring reflection of the sun, moon, electricity, etc. and deny the existence of the Supreme Lord, putting forward theories and different speculations about the creation, maintenance and annihilation of everything material. The medical practitioner may deny the existence of the soul in the physiological bodily construction of an individual person, but he cannot give life to a dead body, even though all the mechanisms of the body exist even after death. The psychologist makes a serious study of the physiological conditions of the brain, as if the construction of a cerebral lump where the machine of the functioning mind, but in the dead body, the psychologist cannot bring back the functioning of the mind. These scientific studies of the cosmic manifestation or the bodily construction, independent of the Supreme Lord, are different reflective intellectual gymnastics only. But at the end, they are all illusion and nothing more. So because this is the point, seeing interactions independent of the Lord. Or in simple terms, to say that matter evolves everything. Everything has come out of the matter. Everything has come by chance. All these philosophical speculations is actually, what is it that? It's all just illusion. That's all. Then Prabhupada further in this purport speaks about the covering potency and the covering potency and the pulling potency. That's the avaranatmika and prakshepatmika. He speaks about both the things. Then Prabhupada then he goes on to speak that a sane man takes enlightenment from the disciplic succession beginning with Brahma, who was personally instructed by the Lord. A sane man thus knows the Lord's position as the source, maintainer and annihilator of all that is, and becomes the Lord's pure servant. So Prabhupada spoke that when you are in illusion, you don't acknowledge that the Lord is the source of everything and is a person, and by his energies everything is happening. You don't acknowledge that. But to become sane, you have to receive this knowledge in the parampara. That is what Prabhupada is stressing now. How the Lord is the source of everything, Prabhupada stresses in this further aspect of the purport. He gives so many references from how the Lord is the source of everything. Even from the Ayurveda also there is a reference which is a little interesting. I will just read that. In the medical science of the ancient sages known as Ayurveda, there is a definite acceptance of the Lord's supremacy in the following words. There is one supreme person who is the progenitor of the cosmic manifestation and whose energy acts as Prakriti or the material nature, dazzling like a reflection. By such illusory action of Prakriti, even dead matter is caused to move by the cooperation of the living energy of the Lord, and the material world appears like a dramatic performance to the ignorant eyes. The ignorant person, therefore, may even be a scientist or physiologist in the drama of Prakriti, while a sane person knows Prakriti as the illusory energy of the Lord. Okay. Now Prabhupada goes on to explain that the living entities are also of the Lord, although they are not themselves God. The superior energy of the Lord cannot be as good as the Lord, although there is very little difference between the energy and the possessor of the energy, or the fire and the heat. So this is a nice example he gives about the difference between the para prakriti and the apara prakriti. So the famous example of the Vishnu Purana, Prabhupada quotes here, fire is possessed of heat, but heat is not fire. The simple thing is not understood by the man with a poor fund of knowledge who falsely claims that the fire and heat are the same, which is not same. They are different. Now, from the letter, I have just added the point here. Now, Prabhupada speaks. The living entities, somehow or other, being entrapped by the material nature, are meeting all kinds of material conditions. His birth, death, old age, and diseases are due to his contact with this material nature. The living entity is evolving different kinds of material body, numbering 84 lakh different forms. Now, in this purport, Prabhupada is very much in common in speaking about that. The material energy is like darkness. Pay attention here. The Lord is light, and the living entities are like the reflection of light in darkness. No one can become freed from darkness by the reflected light of the common man. One has to receive the light from the original light itself. One should take shelter of the Lord's light in the form of the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, Prabhupada, I'm going to read that section from the purport. Being the reflection of the Lord, the existence of the living entity is dependent on the Supreme Lord, who is the original light. You have the sunlight is there. Okay. So the sun rays of the light has got no separate existence. It is coming from the sun. So that's the whole point. This material energy may be compared to darkness, as actually it is darkness. And the activities of living entities in the darkness are reflections of the original light. So how you are able to see the darkness when there is something objecting the light. Then you see the darkness. And then in that darkness you can also further see the reflection of the light. So all these things are possible because there is an original light. From there only everything is coming. Now Prabhupada is pointing out. The Lord should be understood by the context of this verse. Non-dependence of both the energies of the Lord as explained as Maya or illusion. No one can make a solution of the darkness of ignorance simply by the reflection of light. So, the point is that when we are influenced by Maya, we are not able to see the actual light. So, when we are in darkness, we just complain we are in total ignorance. We are not able to see that there is light. Like Prabhupada gives a simple example that when someone is thinking that when the sun has already set, okay, it is dark. So because it is dark, you cannot say that there is no sun. At that, just looking at that particular phase, the night time, what is the sun? There is no sun or anything. Just wait for another 8 hours. In the morning you will see sun appearing. Now because there is no light, you can't just conclude that there is no sun. Why? Because you are in illusion, you are in darkness. Darkness has devoured you. But a person who is in knowledge, he knows that the sun is set. The sun is showing its presence in some other part of the globe. Is it clear? So because ignorance is affecting a person. Because he has taken shelter of the ignorance. He has not taken shelter of the actual light. No one can make a solution of the darkness of ignorance simply by the reflection of light. Similarly, no one can come out of material existence simply by the reflected light of the common man. One has to receive the light from the original light itself. The reflection of sunlight in the darkness is unable to drive out the darkness, but the sunlight outside the reflection can drive out the darkness completely. Amazing, no? You see this room is there. I'll say the entire room is dark. Okay? So you reflect with a mirror some light from somewhere. Okay? Then what you will see? So let's say I'm taking a mirror and then there is some light somewhere, and that light I'm reflecting it on this sofa which is here, or this chair which is here. So please look at the example that I'm trying to give you. I'm showing this sofa alone. So you're able to see this sofa. Okay? It's just a reflection. But that still the room is dark. Unless you turn on the tube light, then the entire room becomes, everything becomes visible. So Prabhupada is pointing out here that the reflection of the sunlight in the darkness is unable to drive out the darkness, but the sunlight outside the reflection can drive out the darkness completely. Are you able to follow? Nice example Prabhupada is giving. Is it clear? Yes, I'll repeat it again. You see, it's a simple one. Prabhupada is saying that. I just gave this example. You try to understand this example. That there is, you see, the whole room is now completely dark. Now what I'm doing, I'm just taking some mirror or something, with some little light. That light is reflected on this sofa. Okay? So in this whole room is dark. What you will be able to see? Reflection. Yeah, and in the reflection, what you will see? You will see only sofa. Nothing else is visible for you. Okay? But when the original light is turned on, then everything you will be able to see. So Prabhupada is pointing out here that the reflection of the sunlight in the darkness is unable to drive out the darkness. But the sunlight outside the reflection can drive out the darkness completely. In darkness, no one can see the things in a room. Therefore, a person in the dark is afraid of snakes and scorpions. Although there may not be such things, but in the light, the things in the room can be clearly seen, and the fear of snakes and scorpions is at once removed. You understand the point? So Prabhupada is saying that this fear, all these confusions and this non-clarity is because you are still in darkness. Things are not very clear. But when they are completely in the light, everything is super clear. Everything you are able to see in reality. You are able to discriminate properly, and everything you are completely happy. So he gives a nice example that you may have a misconception. Maybe there might have been a snake and scorpion some month back. And now when you are sitting in the room, I don't know where it is. Maybe it is there, it is here. Some big confusion is there. But actually there is nothing like that. But an illusion. Illusion is creating you further entanglement and creating you confusion. But when the light is turned on, you just see that there is absolutely no one is there. Only the teacher and the students are sitting there. No one else is there. So it becomes clear. But in the light of the things in the room can be clearly seen, and the fear of snakes and scorpions is at once removed. Therefore, one has to take shelter of the light of the Lord, as in the Bhagavad Gita or the Srimad Bhagavatam, and not the reflective personalities who have no touch with the Lord. Amazing point Prabhupada is saying here. Foolish fellows, what is it? This so-and-so philosopher said this, so-and-so politician said this cinema actor said this my grandfather said that, he said this. Everybody is within the illusory entanglement. They are all having 4 defects. Tendency to get cheated, imperfect senses, a tendency to be illusion, and then also commit mistakes. So what is it that to the degree you take shelter of these people, to that degree you will be influenced by this? How you can get clarity, how you will be able to come out of the fear, how will you be able to come out of the bodily concept of life, how will you come out of the dreamy state? You have to wake up from the dreamy state, isn't it? So very nicely Prabhupada is saying that take the light of the Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavata, light of the Bhagavata, that is required. What does the verse says? Puranarko dhanoditaha Krishne swadhamo pagade dharma jnanadivi saha kalau nashta drisham esha puranarko dhanoditaha. So this light of Bhagavatam will save people from the darkest time of the creation. It will save the people from the ignorance with the torchlight of this Bhagavatam, which is Amala Purana. It purifies us. So very nicely Prabhupada puts it here, you see. And what are these reflective personalities? What they are going to do? Very nice. Now the analogy of Prabhupada gives the same point is very beautifully is explaining. It's really amazing purport Prabhupada is elaborating. So that's why, who is our authority? Supreme Lord Sri Krishna and his pure representatives, or the so-called reflective personalities who have no touch with the Lord? Are you able to follow?
Yes.
Okay. No one should hear the Bhagavad Gita or the Srimad Bhagavatam from a person who does not believe in the existence of the Lord. Such a person is already doomed, and any association with such a doomed person makes the associator also doomed. Okay, now Prabhupada further he says, all the living entities are born in darkness. Light, the mercy of the Lord, is required for them to attain the ability to see. So, this is the point, everyone who is born in this world, they are born dark. That means what? They are born blind. So we need the mercy of the spiritual master. Very nice Prabhupada. Okay, he says, okay, I'll read that. According to the Padma Purana, within the material compass, there are innumerable material universes, and all of them are full of darkness. So you all know, in this material world, without the sun, everything is Karpur. Correct? Just for those who are not here, Karpur is a place in Salem. It's a small village. Karpur in Tamil means, Karpu means black, and Ur means place. So it's a dark place. Of course, we have street lights and everything. Similarly, this whole entire material world, we can say it as Karpur, because without the sun, there is no light here. But whereas Lord's abode, there is no such problem. Natad bhasayate suryo na sashanko na pavakaha yad gatva na nivartante tad dhama paramam mama. The sun reveals itself. Okay, Prabhupada says further. Okay, I'll just go back to that. So any living being, beginning from the Brahmas, there are innumerable Brahmas in innumerable universes, to the insignificant ant, are all born in darkness, and they require factual light from the Lord to see Him directly. Just as the sun can be seen only by the direct light of the sun. Amazing, huh? Where are you going, sir? I am with the torchlight, and I am trying to just find out the sun. With the torchlight, what you are going to see? Nothing you can see, isn't it? Nothing you can see with this torchlight. With the torchlight, you can't see the sun. No lamp or man-made torchlight, however powerful it may be, can help one see the sun. The sun reveals itself. Therefore, the action of different energies of the Lord, or the personality of God Himself, can be realized by the light manifested by the causeless mercy of the Lord. Amazing. Prabhupada says that. So what is that light? That light is the causeless mercy of the Lord. Only with that mercy, you will be able to see. Brahma could see because of the causeless mercy of the Lord. He performed austerities. The Lord was pleased by that, and He revealed. So that's the whole point. Our process is also like that. Atas Sri Krishna Namadi na bhaved grahyam indriyai sevon mukhe jigvadu swayam eva spratyadaha. The Lord is Swarat. He is His own will. He will show Himself to us. He may not show Himself to us. It's up to Him. But unless the Lord shows Himself, we cannot see. Not by whatever process you may undergo, so many processes. No. Bhakti-vaibhava abhi janati. Otherwise, not possible. Okay. The impersonalists say that God cannot be seen. God can be seen by the light of God and not by man-made speculations. Here, this light is specifically mentioned as Vidyat. What is that light? Vidyat, which is an order by the Lord to Brahma. This direct order of the Lord is a manifestation of his internal energy. And this particular energy is the means of seeing the Lord face to face. Not only Brahma, but anyone who may be graced by the Lord to see such merciful, direct internal energy can also realize the personality of Godhead without any mental speculation. So this is the point. So one will be able to see the Lord only by his mercy, and that is Vidyat. Prabhupada referring that as Vidyat. And and that direct order of the Lord is a manifestation of his internal energy, and this particular energy is means of seeing the Lord face to face. So one will be able to see the Lord face to face by Yogamaya potency. When you are in Mahamaya, you will not be able to see the Lord. And the Lord also, in the Gita, he says that Naham prakasha sarvasya yogamaya samavrita mudoyam nabhijanati lokoma ajamavyayam. It's Lord's, I feel we can see that happening with a normal person also. You go to someone's house, I want to meet Mr. Prabhakar. Prabhakar is right there sitting inside the house. He is telling his son, Sir, Prabhakar has gone out. Any message for him? Probably he's not there for another 3 days. I think he's gone on a tour. Any message for him? So politely they come and ask him. Oh, is it? So please tell Mr. Ramesh came. I'm working for Eureka Forbes. I would like to meet him. I'm like, okay. You please, you contact us after 3 days. Bang, the door is closed. Normal person who has a right to not to show himself. Why the Lord has to show himself to others? The Lord will not show. It is his own free will. He will show himself to his devotees. He's not going to show himself to non-devotees who do not have any proper understanding. We will see in the conclusion of this. We saw in the beginning also, Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur is saying that this Chatushloki will be revealed, or the knowledge about the Lord's form will be revealed only to the devotee. At the conclusion of the Chatushloki, Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur says that, okay, here is my commentary for this 4 verses. Well, this only the devotees can understand this. He just says that and concludes this. Yeah, because that's what others cannot understand, others cannot approach, because they are just trying to hover on the reflection of darkness. It's not possible. You cannot. Okay, now Srila Sridhara Swami has commented that this verse describes the darkness, the Lord's power of illusion. So that's what Srila Sridhara Swami says. So I will just stop here. If you have any questions or comments. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.